We even had some kind of last minute email sequence changes based on how people responded to various different emails and open rates and based on the questions that were coming through in the inbox and in our support channels. Repurposing that content into social media content that I was drafting that linked to a call to action, that linked to a ManyChat sequence that our Claude agent built that also sold people into the program.
What if the real barrier between you and a business that runs without you isn't capability, it's architecture? Welcome to Big Moves AI. I'm your host, Simone Leah. And in today's session, I sit down with Dr. Nici Sweaney, who's an AI integration specialist and founder of AI Her Way, who recently ran a $1.5 million launch from a hotel room while traveling. We get into how she built a 5-level AI operating system that runs campaigns without her, why most people are stuck using AI like a chatbot when they could be running a full agent team, and how a lean stack of under $600 a month replaced an entire marketing department. This one will change how you think about what's actually possible, so stay with us until the end. Now, first off, guys, this was not 3 years ago. This is recent. She's recently gotten everything to do this. So you're hearing the stuff off the press. Secondly, oh my goodness, congratulations. Like, that is amazing. Please tell us all about it.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, like, spoiler alert, we were planning to do a 6-figure launch. We thought that was quite aspirational. So 10 times in that, or actually the stats are that we 17 times our original goal almost. It is just astronomical. And I know that none of this would have been possible without our AI systems that drive the entire business. And you're right, this is literally hot off the press. We only did this launch last month. So we closed this month, we closed at the end of May. So, this is very, very, very current. So we're going to get into this. Like I said, it's end of April. I'm traveling around the world. I recently spoke in New York and California and South America. I was overseas and I really wanted to enjoy the moment. And I knew that we were launching at the same time, but I really had it in my head when I left, right, that, I was like, I don't want to spend the entire holiday at my computer. Maybe that's a little bit selfish, but I was like, I really just want to enjoy the opportunity that I'm overseas to speak. This is a really big moment for me. I don't also want to miss out on all of those connections and relationships because I've got 17 emails to write, or because I have all this marketing to do, or because I have all these prospects to get back to, right? I really kind of want to lean in. So I almost use it as an opportunity myself, as a bit of a challenge, right? To ask, what can I do without having to do too much? Because we have so many AI systems that help the business. I really kind of wanted to test what the limits were of those bits and pieces. So that's what we decided to do.
Oh my goodness. Amazing. Like, to have had that result literally while you're traveling, doing speaking, like, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. And, it is this result, right? So this is like a bit of a snapshot of where we got to. Our original target, like I said, was around about the 6-figure mark. And we beat that by 14 times. So we did 1.47 million in banked revenue at our annual recurring revenue rate, because we offered some of those people a slight discount. And when they renew, they'll be paying the standard sort of pricing. So our annual revenue rate is almost 1.7 million off a single product. We had over 800 people sign up across 41 countries, which is ridiculous. Our entire campaign ran for 32 days and we did not spend a cent on advertising.
Wow. I'm just so like, this is like so cool. And how did you do this without advertising? Oh my goodness. We need to talk about all the things.
So before I get into that, for people that don't know me, I'm Dr. Nici Sweaney. I run AI Her Way. Yes, we are an AI integration company. We specifically focus on what ethical, responsible AI looks like. And I specialize in AI operating systems. So yes, I teach this stuff. I'm also walking the walk. I like to think that I'm the ultimate use case for what these systems can actually achieve. My background is in academia and also in data science. So I spent 17 years in academia, 10 of those consulting as a data scientist, before I started focusing on what AI was going to do to the future of work and the future of education. That moment quickly snowballed into me building out real AI solutions, because as I talked about AI safety, as I talked about the risks, as I talked about the challenges, I recognized that people really needed someone to help guide what that safe integration actually looks like. So that's what started AI Her Way, as well as this kind of firm belief that women should be really part of the picture and shaping this technology and using it to launch and scale our dreams as well. That's what drives me. But at this point, I have done over 200 keynotes, which is insane.
That's
All
so
across the
good.
world. Yeah, I've spoken in Asia, in Europe, in America, across Australia, New Zealand, in the Pacific nations. And I've worked with lots of governments, lots of big organizations, but I'm really passionate about helping individuals as well. And again, when it comes to that gender equity lens, like a very small number of Australian owned businesses that are run by women ever make it to six figures. Less than 2% make it to seven figures. A very small portion ever have enough capital to hire and employ other humans. So I was really passionate about how do we leverage this technology to give women as much of an opportunity as possible, because it's not that we're getting to not reaching those levels because we're not capable. It's that we're often struggling with the mental load and trying to navigate everything and taking care of everyone and just kind of being stretched so thin that there's never that resourcing capacity to get our business to the next level. So I guess that's the ultimate goal of AI Her Way. It's to leverage technology to help women launch and scale their dreams and ensure that we have all of the resources that we've ever kind of dreamt of, and we can make as much noise and take up as much space as possible, which I feel like this launch kind of proved to me as well, about like, wow, I've got 4 kids. I have like a big full life. I have Fridays off with my partner. This is still what we could achieve given that we have these systems supporting the vision and the dream. And that felt really meaningful to me as well.
Oh my goodness. I love this. Some of this I knew, some of this I didn't. The fact that you also have like 4 kids as well running around and doing the kid thing, like I'm like, how is she doing all this? She's got low team members. She's got a full family load. Like,
Well, see, this is the systems, right? Like this is the moment. And I think, we were talking before we kind of started recording about that real overwhelm of the fact that there's so many tools out there and we're kind of like all trying to wrap our head around it. And we all feel like we're behind because there's all this stuff that we should be doing or we could be doing with AI. And we're seeing all these reels and, you're watching these TikTok videos and YouTube videos, and it seems like everyone's got this stuff everywhere. So I see a lot of people kind of struggling with that urgency factor, the feeling that you are constantly behind no matter what you do when it comes to AI. And that comes with this real overwhelm. And then there is this other essence of like this lack of systems. So what I mean by that is like when I talk to most people about how they use AI, they've got like a Chat GPT subscription or they've got a Claude subscription, and they have a whole bunch of lovely chats happening inside of those tools. But that's kind of the extent of it. Like there's no action being taken on the back of all of those insights and all of those chats. There's no systems being built around the fact that you've had a similar sort of conversation 20 times over. There's no self-learning of the AI tools to become better over time. There's no kind of attribution of personality. So you're not actually building staff members. You've just got like a whole bunch of stuff. You're just doing lots of things with AI, but it doesn't really feel like a support system. It doesn't really feel like you've got a team working for you. And I feel like for lots of people, that traps them in this kind of like, yeah, I'm using AI and I'm just doing lots of stuff fast. But like, my life hasn't really changed. Where is this 4-day work week and sipping cocktails on the beach that AI has promised me that, these people keep talking about? I feel like that's a really big issue right now.
Absolutely.
And, to that, I just want to reiterate that for most people, what we see is that the biggest barrier between you using AI right now and the type of business and the type of life that you could have if you used the technology properly, it's not capability. It's not the fact that you need to know more about the tool. It's usually in the architecture. It's usually in the fact that there is this lack of systems that are actually functioning behind the scenes. And I guess, that is what we specialize in, but I truly believe in that because that's the same we look at human teams, right? Like if you have a human team that has no system, if nobody knows how to do their job, if there is no cadence for who owns what and when you check in with each other and what happens at the staff meeting, if there is no predictability around due dates or expectations, it doesn't really matter how many people you hire. It's always going to feel like chaos. It's exactly the same when you hire AI. People just aren't practiced yet at applying the same mentality. If you don't train your AI team members really well, if you don't set them up with expectations, if you don't tell them what they're allowed to access and not access, and I'm going to talk through what this all kind of tangibly looks like, but if you don't do any of those things with AI, it's not magically going to save you and solve all your problems. It's also just going to create probably a fair bit of chaos and very, very quickly because of how fast it works. So that's the real core issue that we most of the time see in people and in organizations. And that is regardless of size. I see it in solopreneurs. I also see it in the multinational conglomerate over $1 billion valuation companies that I work with as well.
Amazing.
Yep. All right, so let's have a little talk. I just thought it'd be useful for listeners. If they watched last time I spoke about this, I'm pretty sure I presented this as well because I show it every time I talk. But it enables you to conceptualize what I actually mean by using AI in the business. So when I talk about using AI in the business, I'm speaking about level 5 here, right? Now, each one of these levels is a skill set that's very important for you to know and to be able to feel confident in. And each one of these levels kind of stacks on top of each other, hence why it's a pyramid. But really getting good at level 1 is important before you do level 2. It's important before you graduate to level 3, and I'll explain why. So this enables you to really kind of understand, hopefully, a little bit more about what I'm talking about when I'm saying, hey, systems just allowed us to do a $1.5 million launch, and maybe where you're at with your current AI use. And then I'm going to give you a bit of a pathway of how you kind of progress up these levels. So your first level is prompting large language models. So that is your classic, I have ChatGPT, I've got Gemini, I've got Claude, whatever it is. I'm opening it up, I'm typing in some stuff, or maybe you're speaking to it, or you're sending it some photos or files. You're having a chat and there's a bit of back and forth. And eventually maybe you get a good outcome. Maybe sometimes you don't. Maybe sometimes you get into a 30-minute argument with it. And then at the end of that piece of work, you're potentially kind of copy pasting it to where it needs to live ultimately. And then you go about your day. Or you don't even copy paste it and it just kind of disappears into the ether of all of the chats that you've had with your large language model. Now, at that level, if you are really good at prompting, the goal of that is to be so great at writing instructions that you don't have to engage in the back and forth. So if I just think around something to do with my marketing, so if I think about the email sequences that we just ran in this launch, if I can describe to, let's just go with Claude, if I can describe to Claude how to write a great email to do with this particular product, and I can include enough of a description, enough kind of caveats, enough examples, enough about my brand language, all of those bits and pieces, that the idea is as soon as I hit enter, when Claude responds and gives me an email, it's actually something I can use. I don't have to engage in this back and forth. I don't have to do all these edits. I don't have to yell at it. No, that's not what I want. You're not listening. Being good at prompting is a great skill set because it unlocks that level of efficiency, right? One set of instructions in, actually usable output as a response. But this is actually where lots of people end up kind of sitting, and they think that, hey, if I'm good at this, I'm good at AI, right? It's just your entry point, actually. So why this is the entry point is because if you think about, again, that sequence of emails, if I'm writing that in every time I want an email, like now I want an email about this, use sales psychology for this, make sure you include stuff about the product. Here's some stuff about the product. Here's an example of some emails I liked. Here's some examples of emails I don't like. Here's our language, yada, yada, yada. If I'm doing that 10 times for 10 different emails, well, that's not efficient. So at that point, that is your signal that actually you want a custom bot. So that is skills in Claude, projects in Claude, that is custom GPTs in ChatGPT, it's gems in Gemini, they're called agents in Copilot. Every platform has a version of this when you pay for the platform, where you can put in a set of instructions, and then it's your little custom version of that large language model, and you can call it, email writer. And every time you're writing out emails, instead of having to do that brief from scratch every time you're doing the task, you just use your bot to do it. So this is where you're so great at writing instructions that you package them up. Now I've got an email sequencing bot that I just say, hey, I'd like you to write an email about blah, and it has all of the training and knowledge it needs in order to execute on that task. So again, you're increasing your efficiency, you're increasing consistency, you're increasing how much work you can get done. But at this point, if we just go with this straight example, when I get to the end of that email, I've actually got to go and copy paste it to my email marketing platform. And at some point, I don't want to do that either. Because remember, I'm overseas. I don't want to open my laptop. So this is where you actually want level 3, which is assistance. This is where your large language model has not only custom instructions, but also has connections to the rest of your tech stack. So these are usually called connectors in any one of your large language models. This is where I say, hey, I want to write an email sequence to sell the hub. Here are some notes about that. The bot understands exactly how to write those emails, but the bot also has connections to the internet, so it can research more about my product or me or my language. It also has connections to Notion, so it can go and see all of our standard operating procedures around brand guidelines and how we like to sound. And then it can actually produce the email and go and put it in our email marketing software as a draft ready to just hit send on. Right? So you're starting to be more efficient. You're starting to be more hands off. These AI tools are starting to take more responsibility for actually kind of doing work. Now, levels 1, 2, and 3, super handy, great, but you still say do the job. So even if I'm saying, please write an email, I still have to actually do that. And again, if you're traveling, if something happens with your family, if it's like the weekend, there may not be any humans around to say, I'd like you to write some emails, but maybe that work still needs to happen. So this is where you want to graduate to level 4. So at level 4, this is automations or scheduled events or triggered processes with AI. So this is where instead of a human saying, I need you to do the job, it understands that it has to write an email sequence just because it's Monday morning and that's what we do on Monday mornings. Or just because I detected a new campaign in Notion, so I know it's my job to go and write emails. Yeah. So at level 4, this is where it starts to feel a little bit like not quite a whole staff member with heaps of responsibilities, but, like a task rabbit. Like, yeah, I have a system that writes a series of email sequences that sell a particular product, and they do that because they've detected that I've said that there's a new campaign to run. And so they've picked that up from a task board in Notion. They understand their job. They know how to execute. They can actually create the drafts and put them in our email marketing platform. So that's awesome, but it's not the kind of top of the pyramid. The top of the pyramid is where you start to hire actual AI agents, so actual agentic AI, which is different from a lot of the time when people talk about AI agents, they're actually talking about Claude skills or they're talking about agents in Copilot. That's a level 2 thing. Agentic AI makes an autonomous plan on how best to execute on an objective. So this is like we have the head of marketing, and I say to the head of marketing, we're planning on launching the hub. Our target is 100 new members, and we're launching from this period to this period. The head of marketing knows what social media platforms we are on. It knows the size of our email list. It knows when I'm running the masterclass. It knows our ideal client avatar. It knows the product. It knows exactly what's in the hub. It understands the curriculum, all of that. And it puts together a plan about how to run the campaign to support the launch of the hub. It delegates the work. And so one of those tasks might be to run an email sequence. So it goes and taps, this lady on the shoulder and says, hey, honey, it's time for you to work. We need an email sequence. But as the manager, it's in charge of delegating that work out to all the systems underneath its jurisdiction. They work to achieve that objective. The manager can even give feedback and say like, emails 1 and 2 are great. Email 3, I need you to rewrite that one. Make sure you keep in mind X, Y, Z. And they can all collaborate together until the outcome is achieved. So this starts to be a manager that is in charge of a team. The team has individual responsibilities, so individual skill sets or capabilities, and they work together outside of a human being involved in that process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this is where it starts to just blow my mind on the things we can do. It's just like amazing that we can now be like, all right, we need to like create a workflow that does all of this. And then it just does it. And it's like amazing.
Exactly right. And, this is why it is so exciting for people that have this sort of mind as well, because in the past, if you're somebody that has lots of ideas or has lots of passion about what they do or lots of ways that they feel like they could deliver value, you're constrained by resources and like physical time during the day. we aren't anymore. So now probably more the question is like, should we rather than can we? And I find myself doing a lot of that. I'm like, oh my God, I want to do all these things. And then I have these moments of being like, probably don't need to do them all right now. Probably should just focus on, A, B, and C. But that's okay. That's a lovely problem to have.
I absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So, this is how you start to go from just like, yeah, cool, we've got Claude or we've got ChatGPT into like, we have staff that happen to be run by artificial intelligence rather than human intelligence. And that's a really key distinction. So when I talk about how to get started, which, we'll finish off this process by talking about how to get started, you don't have to start by building agentic AI. Why I present that pyramid in particular is because if you hire a manager, right? If we think about, again, hiring humans, if you go and hire a manager and they don't have any staff that actually work underneath them, they don't have any documented processes, they don't have access to any context about the business, they don't have access to any of your tech stack, they don't have clear directions around what good looks like to you or what your actual goals are, doesn't really matter that you hired a manager. It's not going to feel like help. In fact, it's probably just going to create problems and make you feel like you have to do more work to fix the problems that the manager created. It is exactly the same with AI. What I see over and over again is I talk about my systems and people are like, yeah, I want that. And, I don't blame you. Of course you want that. But that only comes after you clearly document all of your processes. So I always teach people from a bottom up approach instead of like a top down approach. You have to be good at prompting. You have to be good at writing a skills file. For example, you have to make sure that you test, can I connect it to my tech stack? Am I giving it the right amount of access? Is it doing the right amount of things? What are the actual workflows or processes that we need done autonomously? How can we make sure our AI agents are doing it in a safe way that reflects how we would do it? What happens when they run into a roadblock? Are they actually letting us know, or are they just kind of bulldozing through and creating mess and wreaking havoc? You have to kind of do the work to get the payoff. The payoff is huge. You can build a team that is very, very, very cheap to run, that works 24/7, that you can change at any moment whenever you decide that you'd like a different way of working, right? It is astronomical what you can get out of it, but that doesn't come without work. So I just want to be really transparent around that. It's not a free for all, right? You don't get something for nothing, but it is absolutely worth it.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's so many people who are like probably looking at this going, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do this. But like it might take 10 years, but it doesn't take that long. It does just take that dedication and commitment.
Exactly. Like I would say, like we have a huge online community where we teach people how to do this. I would say most people are posting about something that has unequivocally changed their business within the first week. But there are always so many more things you can apply it to, right? So, we're talking about launch strategy. Yes, it probably would change the way that you work if you actually had a reliable system that wrote high converting emails for your launches. Like that is very cool. That is not the 60 or so things that you probably have right now in your head of like, oh, I could do this and I could do that and I could do that. But it happens and you have to start, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So look, this is the structure of my sort of business. So the reason why this launch worked so well is because we've put so much work into actually building out a team. So if we just concentrate in on marketing and content, right? We have multiple sub agents that live underneath the head agent. So we have a head agent that's in charge of marketing and content. They decide strategy and they decide what components are going towards each of our campaigns. But underneath them, they also can call on the sub agents. So you can think of their employees that are really great at LinkedIn, that are fantastic at Instagram, fantastic at writing our newsletters, that design kind of campaigns, because we do content outside of just campaigns. There's two elements to how we do our marketing: ad spend, brand design, video editing, my AI doppelganger for when I might need to record stuff or do pictures or videos where I'm not necessarily having me in those shots, but my AI doppelganger in those shots. So we have lots of different elements that are inside this marketing and content team. And what happens is when they all work together, then the head agent can hand off subtasks to all of the systems that live underneath it, right? And again, that's a really key distinction. So chatbots, So just signing into Claude Online, ChatGPT Online, like if you're going to Claude.ai or ChatGPT, is it .ai or .com? Anyway, I feel like
Oh,
it's .com.
I don't
Yeah,
even
don't know
use
about that one.
ChatGPT anymore.
Oh, well, yes, there you go. Who knows what URL it has? If you go
Yeah.
into Gemini, if you're signing into Copilot, you are using a chatbot. So they respond when they're asked to do something. They don't necessarily have self-improving memory over time. Like, yes, they've got memory in the context of that chat, but not in the same way where, like a human, right? If we have a conversation about a piece of work and I'm giving you some feedback, you're kind of meant to retain that for the next time you do that piece of work. That's not necessarily happening in a chatbot. They have fairly generic knowledge. So yes, you might upload some knowledge-based files, but if we think about, proper companies have usually dozens at least of documents that inform how they work and how they do things. The chatbot might not have connections to every tech stack that you use or know when to use that connection. And most importantly, usually a chatbot needs you to initiate the work. So you've got to go in and start something. Whereas an agent, so agentic AI, and agentic AI comes into play if you're using tools like Claude Code or Codex or OpenClaw. You can get some agentic AI in Claude co-work as well. It's usually a little bit more up to Claude on how that's designed and less up to you, but it is an option. But a true AI agent has a specific role that it plays. It has roles and responsibilities, and it has specialized skills. So these are like the sub agents you can call upon in order to help it execute its work. It is connected to every piece of software that you use that it needs in order to do its job. And it works on either a schedule, so a triggered event, or it works just because it understands what its responsibilities are. And it's constantly watching for like, oh, I detect that my responsibilities are being called upon in this particular scenario. I'm needed for this job. So I'm going to go and do my job, just like people do in a role. They're not sitting there at 9 a.m. every day being like, hope someone tells me what to do today because I'm ready. People, or at least good employees, I don't know, there's probably some employees that are waiting to be told what to do every day, but good employees understand their role and responsibilities. They understand the work that is happening inside of the business. They understand which of that work actually relates to their role, and they're able to execute and help the team out as part of their autonomous skill set, right? So that's the difference between a chatbot and an agent.
Just love it. I'm so excited. The future is like the coolest thing ever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's, nuts. Really. But, like let's use it to our advantage. Let's use it to make good impact on the world. Let's use it to help our customers and clients. I think that is a wonderful use case of this technology. So when you think about an AI agent, there are kind of 6 components of an AI agent. And what I'm going to leave you with is like where to start, because you don't necessarily have to build out all of this. Like I said, your goal is not to build agentic AI today. Your goal is to understand the components that are necessary. 1. 2, your goal is to understand why it's different to just a chatbot that you sign into online. And 3, I just want you to understand what is possible when you get this stuff right. So 6 components of an AI agent. The most important are the role card and the skills. So your role card is a document that outlines who is this agent, what are they responsible for, what do they do, when do they do it, what are they not allowed to do. And you can think about this like writing a roles and responsibilities card for a new human employee. So when you put a job ad out or when you write up a position description, you don't say like, oh, on Monday mornings, you will create a newsletter from these 3 sources written in this brand language and send it out to our subscriber list. You say you are responsible for like regular newsletter writing for our subscriber base. So that's what goes in a role card, not the exact of how to do each component. That comes into skills. So role card is who is this agent? What is their persona? What are their key responsibilities? Okay, if I could design the perfect person to fill a job role, that's what goes into your role card. And these are just documents that you want to have somewhere. Again, when you get into this, you want them written in Markdown. There's different ways to package them up for different platforms, but all I want you to know is you need to write this down somewhere as a starting point. The second thing is the skills. So the skills are the individual components of what that agent would be responsible for and exactly how to do it. These are your files that say, when I write the newsletter, this is exactly how to do it. When we do email sequences, this is exactly how to do it. When I write a subject line to get people to open the email, this is exactly how to do it, right? Then the next part comes into databases that your agent needs in order to be good at its job. So these can take a variety of forms. We store most of our databases inside of Notion, but memory, lists of tools, lists of schedules, and lists of how this thing is managed or how we can review its work. So a memory database, it's coded into the instructions for the agent to, at key points, record any feedback or criticism that it's received or any kind of redirection it's received. And then what the agent is also encoded to do is review that memory bank every time it starts work so that over time, as you're giving it corrections, it's committing those to memory. And then it's looking at that before it does the thing the next time. So that over time, just like a good employee, you have to do less and less guidance around how it works. The next one is tools. So this is just a list of and a way to access all of your tech stack. And that could take lots of different varieties depending on the type of tool that you're using. But this is just a list of, like, in order to do your job, what do you need sign-ins for? And again, think about it like an employee. Each agent should have their own set of sign-in, because if that employee does something a bit odd one day, you want to know which employee was responsible. Number 5 is the schedule. So this is, why do I do my job? When do I know it's time for me to work? This can be a mix of, like, yeah, it's Monday morning at 8 a.m., or it might be like a triggered event saying, hey, when I assign you a task on Notion, you know it's your time to do work. Or when a new campaign is added to our campaign calendar, like our launch of the Impact Hub, it's your time to make the marketing strategy around that campaign offer. And the last one there is the revisions. So what we do is we treat our AI agents like staff. We have a regular review cadence where we have a look at some of the work that we've been doing, and we literally have a performance review meeting to say, hey, this is how I feel like you're going. These are areas for you to improve. This is what we'd like to see come out of you over those next kind of 3 or 6 months, so that you take responsibility for it. Because I think the other thing is, when we have these autonomous agents working in the business, it can be really easy to forget that you are still their leader. And just like we don't hire staff and stick them in some unwindowed office for the next 6 weeks and never check in on them, we also don't want to just leave our agents out there doing whatever they do without ever actually engaging in a conversation or looking at their work or reviewing how closely aligned their work is with what we ultimately want as the ideal sort of outcome. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you our engine that carried this launch, and then we're going to talk about how you can get started.
Yeah.
So this is an example of our overview of our agents, right? So we use an agent orchestration layer that lets us see what our agents are doing at any one time. So you can see here, if we go through this kind of day, if I just start this one again, if we go through this day, they are looking at, and this is my admin as well as my marketing, but they are looking at what is trending. They're looking at campaigns. They're then designing the strategy. They're creating pieces of content. They're repurposing it for the different sorts of platforms. They're creating that email market system, but then they're also looking at the inbox. They're seeing what questions are coming in from prospects. They're understanding the sentiment around what people are asking to do with the program. So they're adaptable in real time. And what we saw over the launch is we had people emailing about, different questions that they had around the hub. So then our marketing agent was creating real-time responses, and we were able to create content that answered those questions as they were coming in, because these systems are able to talk to each other. So it's not just that I had one thing managing the inbox and another thing writing emails. It's that my admin and operations team, which is humans and AI, could talk to my marketing and content team, and they could collaborate on what was the best outcome, and they could change their approach in real time. And that is the difference between, I have a chatbot that writes marketing on Mondays, and I have an agentic system that can adapt in real time and gets better at its job and can deliver outcomes based on the real data that's coming in at any one moment.
It's mind-blowing to think, like, back in the day, like, obviously we'd do our posts, like, even if you're doing staff members, you'd go and get your marketing staff member to do your post, and that might not actually end up with anybody else. So the fact that, like, you guys are getting like stuff coming through emails, and then you're able to implement that into changes across all areas of the business without even thinking about it and just doing it in real time is literally mind blowing.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the piece, right? Where it goes from like, yeah, AI is cool and really useful to like, holy crap, this stuff is actually running the business. And that was the realization for me. And that's why I kind of wanted to talk about this at this particular session. This is the first time I've talked about the launch, actually. It's because after coming back from overseas, I had this moment of being like, whoa, I was not on my computer. And while that's normal for me, and it was normal in that period of time, I realized that that's probably not normal for most founders in a very small team. So I only have 2 human employees and they're both part-time and neither of them are in marketing. I've operations, so my business manager basically, head of operations, and I have an EA. And between them, they only do about a 30-hour week between the 2 of them. So I just had this moment of being like, I don't actually think that that's not quote unquote normal for a founder to be running that a 7-figure launch while overseas and kind of really not available and to not have a team that is in marketing or content or launch or sales or ads, right? Like I didn't have anyone that was tracking the numbers. What I had was a system that was adapting in real time. And then I was able to make voice notes on my phone and give it my decisions or my advice or to add anything that I felt like it was missing. So yes, I was still in that CEO strategic position, but I didn't have to do any of the work and neither did my team, which is crazy. So, this is the launch that ran, right? Overnight, it was tracking sales, where they were coming from, anything that needed my attention. On a day-to-day basis, they were helping plan out what the email sequence was. So we even had some kind of last-minute email sequence changes based on how people responded to various different emails and open rates and based on the questions that were coming through in the inbox and in our support channels, repurposing that content into social media content that I was drafting that linked to a call to action, that linked to a ManyChat sequence that our Claude agent built that also sold people into the program. Then we also had that engine around, looking at our newsletter and our marketing emails, looking at the open rates, the click-through rates, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't. And then we also built a Notion space where Claude was auto-populating it with all the questions that were coming through and all the answers from my team. And then we built a Claude EA agent that was also helping to monitor the inbox and was helping to answer everyone's questions because, we were building traction. We had no idea we were going to. Again, I have these 2 part-time people. We thought we might have 100 people enter the hub. So we thought, we'll be able to handle that emails. And we also thought that we might have 1,000 people register for the masterclass that we ran. So, we were prepared for that. That felt pretty pie in the sky. In the end, we had over 5,000 people register for the masterclass. And like I said, we sold to over 800 people. So the amount of questions and support queries we had was just next level. But in that 2.5 weeks, we were able to churn up another agent that then was helping answer all of the questions inside of those support channels. So that's what the system really looked like. And what I want to leave you with is just where I think you should start. Because I feel like every time I come on here or every time I talk, we're at this level. And I always like talking about that because I want you to know where you should be headed and I want you to know what's possible when you're there. But I also recognize that lots of people are a long way off that level 5. And that's totally cool. You actually can get so much value out of being good at every single one of those levels. Every single one of those levels unlocks serious time, serious revenue, serious resources. When I think back to when I was still in a full-time corporate job, plus had this business on the side, that was back in 2023. There weren't scheduled tasks. There weren't these there were automations. They didn't work very well, but there weren't levels 3, 4, and 5, even as an option. But I still was able to grow the business to 6 figures and quit my corporate job while raising 4 kids, while working 9 to 5, because I was really good at levels 1 and 2. So the most important thing to do first is to build good skills files. And skills files don't have to be in Claude, by the way. Skills files are just a markdown document. And if you don't know what markdown is, Google it. But skills are just a markdown document that describe to AI tools how exactly to do a particular thing. So you need to think of a name to give it, and the name needs to be boring. Your skills file should exactly describe what it does. It shouldn't be like, I remember when I used to build custom GPTs and I'd be like, oh, it's admin Ali. And I'd be like, oh, this one's Teresa. Don't do that when you build skills files, because AI needs to understand when to draw on that skills file. So name it something like email sequence writer. Okay. And then the first paragraph should be a description of what it does and when it should be used. Because again, when we use AI to do things for us, if we have lots and lots of skills files, and you were talking before about like how somebody's got 1,000 skills files. If your AI has to try and look through 1,000 skills files and read the first 4 paragraphs of every skills file in order to know which one to use, you're going to spend a buttload on API costs, or you're going to have that horrible message that pops up and says, you've reached your token limit, you've got to wait till 6 p.m. So in that first paragraph, it needs to tell the AI tool, what is this doing and when should I be used? Then you need to get so specific about how to do it, right? And provide examples about what to do and not do, and give it clear instructions around what you give it permission for, what it should ask your advice about, and what it must never do. That's the safety component. Now, when I say you need to be specific, you need to be so specific. You need to think about this document like, I have to hand this document to a 13-year-old on the street, and they need to be able to do the job to 90% of how I would do it. That's the level of specificity. It's not, I like to write great emails and we like to have about 200 words in them. It is, how do I start my sentences? What words do I never use? How long should sentences be? Who do I like to sound like? Who do I not want to sound like? What do we talk about? What do we never talk about? Give me 5 examples of a paragraph. I'm going to tell you why I would rewrite each one. And then you're going to analyze that for how I actually look at this and how to sound like me. This is how much we use emojis. These are the emojis that we like, right? You get really specific. My number one tip for this is to talk to your AI tool. Literally open it up. Say, I want you to turn something I do in my business into, if you're using Claude, a Claude skill. Otherwise, you can just say a skill markdown file. I want it to be gold standard. Interview me. Ask one question at a time until you have everything. Don't just capture the steps. Capture how and why I make each decision. The judgment I'd teach a new hire but have never written down. Get my voice, real examples, edge cases, what I do when things go wrong. Ask where the guardrails and human checkpoints belong, what you must never do, where I sign off before anything goes live. When you have enough, write the skills file, a name, a description with trigger phrases, instructions in my voice, worked examples, explicit guardrails. Tell me how to test it. This is the easiest way to start to capture high quality skills files. And literally, I just do this whenever I commute to the airport or walk my dog. I pick another thing off the list that I wish I had a staff member for. I talk to the high heavens, because you can tell that I don't mind talking. I talk to the high heavens about what I do, how I do it, everything I can possibly think of, every rabbit hole I can go down, every decision I make, because, these tools aren't going to tell you that you're talking too much, so it's totally fine. I ask them to capture it all and repackage it back to me, set it up as a skills file. You never have to do that thing again, right? That is how you do this. So that is literally what I want you to do. Everyone at home, right? I want you to pick one repetitive task in the business. If you want it to be around launching, then I highly suggest something around content or marketing support. But the whole idea behind this is that everything is kind of game for this. Anything that feels helpful, anything you're doing a lot of, right, that is taking up too much time, money, resources, or brain space. Pick a repeatable task, right? Run the interview prompt and let your AI tool build the skills file for you. Now, I've got Claude written there. It actually doesn't matter which platform it is. All of them know what a skills markdown file is. And if you're in Codex, it actually uses skills files exactly like Claude does as well. Then you're going to test it, right? So you're going to ask it to do something that potentially you've already done so that you can compare how I did it with what it gave me. And then just be willing to give it feedback. Also acknowledge you have just hired a new staff member to do a particular task. You need to be willing to tell them what they got right and what they got wrong. I see too many people put effort into a skills file. They get it to write a newsletter. They don't like the newsletter and they go, oh, that was a fail. I'll start again. No, you don't start again. You don't fire the person and go back to market and rehire. That's so much energy. What you do first is you give them feedback and you try and grow them into the role. That is where most people drop off in their AI usage. They don't give it feedback. They don't make it better. If you never have good skills files, you can never actually use agentic AI to its full potential. You'll never be able to travel for 2.5 weeks while launching a $1.5 million product. It just won't be possible because your managers won't actually know how to do their jobs. So start there. And then if you have capacity, if you're using something like ChatGPT or Claude or even Gemini, set up a scheduled task to run that particular thing. This will start feeling like you actually have support, because instead of opening your inbox every single day and thinking through what content to post, you will have a system that's triaging your emails, that's auto drafting responses, and has suggested 5 things that you can post on Instagram that day and has already done the carousel images for you. That is the unlock that I want for everyone. That is the future of how business runs. And when you get it right, it feels amazing. I think my favorite piece of feedback from one of the women that I work with is that she noticed the difference in her children, right? So Shelby here actually noticed the difference in her kids because she had so much more free time to give them energy, that they were no longer kind of pandering to her, because she wasn't like angry and annoyed sitting in her desk trying to do all the things, because she had agentic AI working for her. So that's what I want for everyone. That is the end of my spiel. And that is everything that I wanted to share with you, because it really does get so good after this, right? So start with skills. We have resources to help you with that. But remember that that's not the end of your journey. That's actually the building blocks to start to have true AI staff.
Yeah. This is amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure this has been mind blowing for everybody. I do have a couple of quick questions, if that's okay,
Yeah,
time-wise.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ask away.
All right. When we originally spoke, they're
Yeah.
very different questions. But when we originally spoke, you were at a point where you were allowing AI to send your newsletter without you having to actually read it. Are you doing that with
Yep.
other content as well? Or are you now just, if it'll write 5 posts for Instagram, but you will still check them and then actually load them into the platforms yourself and release them?
So that's such a good question. It's a little bit of both, I have to say. So there are some things that I trust my system to do. So, for example, when we write our weekly newsletter, I trust the system to repurpose that newsletter into my content and to post that or schedule it on my behalf, because it's just a bit more tried and tested, and it's a little bit less nuanced because we're taking statistics or findings or headlines that we're already talking about in our newsletter and repurposing them for socials. When I ran the campaign, there's a lot of me in my marketing, and people are buying from me because there is, well, I assume, because there's this level of kind of brand attachment, but also this level of like authority around it, right? Like I think my particular place in AI is the data science academic background with that sort of ethics safety lens. So there is a lot of me that needs to go into that messaging. So with the campaigns in particular, I usually checked what it suggested and gave any verbal redirection or feedback, and then had it actually create the content and again, schedule it on my behalf. So the way that we do that, we don't use scheduling platforms. So I actually talk to my agents that live at home on my Mac Mini, and then they have access to go and control the browser and go and schedule content on my behalf. So that's how we run this system. So it is a little bit of a mixed bag. And I guess for me, that feels really comfortable because I have oversight where I feel like I need more personal touch. And then I give full autonomy where I feel like I can really trust the system.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. And you don't have any problems with like it accessing Meta or anything like that to schedule the content?
Not at the moment. I mean, sometimes it can be a little bit clunky, or it might run into a problem and like, somebody jumps in to kind of help it along. But at the moment, by and large, it's been pretty good. And, we were talking about this beforehand too, but now with our online community, we do the same thing. So we allow our agents to control the browser and go into our community group to read posts and formulate responses. And then we're very transparent with our community members that this is written by the AI assistant. But that's also how we try and keep on top of our community questions, because, we went from thinking we might have 100 people to now almost having 1,000 people. So we get a lot of, like, I'm talking maybe 80 questions every 3 days. So we're now using that same system to open the browser and control that as well.
Okay, that right there was mind blowing because that means you can actually get your agents to do weekly check-ins with your community and also answer their questions and also like direct them to, oh, okay, I think this is a great place for you to start or whatever. So I love that you're actually using that in that way with your community.
Yeah, and it's really valuable for them too. Like we're really transparent. I say that I'm in the community 2 to 3 times a week, but people that like we have one tier of our community that is priority access to me and live calls with me. The standard tier of our community is more of like a peer support journey. So it was also just an important part for me to kind of put in that expectation that yes, I am in there, but it is not my job for 40 hours a week to be monitoring just community questions. We have other humans, but then we also have these tools that are looking at our transcripts. They're looking at our frequently asked questions. They're also looking at, so I did a couple of workshops recently where people had so many questions I couldn't get back to them. So what I did is I got all the questions from a transcript and I recorded my answers and then had AI transcribe it and kind of package it up nicely. So we've now built the course wiki where we're collecting all of that kind of stuff from not only our community, but other workshops I give in this space, because, we know that if you've got a question, 20 other people are wondering the same thing. And now that is live updating. And then our agents are looking at that resource in order to repackage any of those answers that are relevant for people in the community. So it's not making stuff up, and it has a caveat, it has a control. So if it's not at least 80% sure that that is the correct answer, it will write a note to me and say, I'd love your thoughts on this. Could you just let me know? And also at the bottom of every message, it says it's written by the AI assistant. If Nici has anything to add, she'll jump in here. This is drawn from particular hub resources as well as our course wiki page. So we're really transparent around what that is for our community. But it means, again, we can cater to people across 41 different countries and those time zones and actually get help to them when they need it.
Absolutely. Your speed of actually like being able to respond would be through the roof, which is like phenomenal. I'm loving all of this, but I am aware of time. So I do have another question that's about
Yeah.
what tech are you using? Because you've obviously got Notion, you've obviously got, Claude. What is your tech and roughly what's it costing you? Because I know we've got 2 staff members at about 15 hours a week, you, and
Yeah.
then also all of these other things.
Yes. So predominantly, I would say 80% of what we do is probably between Claude and Notion at the moment, and that might be a mix of Claude Coworker and Claude Code and using agents in there. We also have some other agentic systems running. I have a few on Codex just for things that are very kind of token heavy, because Codex is a little bit cheaper to run in that context. And then I do have self-hosted models, which you don't pay for, but I have them downloaded on my device for kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. So then we're not paying API costs. So we use Gemma, Llama, Phi, and Mistral. That's not necessary for everyone, but it's definitely worth exploring once you really have a lot of agent systems running, because just like you don't pay managers the same as like, employees of those managers, it's kind of like you want to use, something like Claude or really kind of high intelligence models for your strategic thinking. But then once you've got the strategy, if you've got a really articulate skills file about, even how to write, I don't know, like how to write your emails, for example, you don't necessarily have to have a paid model to do that for you. It's just as long as you've got the strategy and the clear direction. So we use those, but they aren't a cost. And then for that kind of tech stack, so we pay $18 a month per seat inside of Notion because we use the Notion business tier. So across our 3 people, then that's $52, right? I think that might have been right. That's like $50 a month. But then, I do use the highest tier of Claude. So we pay around $300 a month for Claude. And then for our agent orchestration level that you saw, we run that through a tool called Paperclip, but that's also open source. So that's free as well. So I guess between those 2 tools, if you want to safely say we spend $600 a month on tools and tech stack, then, that's probably in the ballpark of where we sit. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like crazy low. Are we still using things like Canva for designing stuff and like email marketing stuff? Or is that all pretty like obviously is the email
So we
marketing
do. So yeah, beyond kind of like the AI suite, I guess, yes, we have Canva. I must say, because my partner's an educator, then I get pro for free through him. But So we use, and my team kind of share that account. I don't know if I meant to admit that. If anyone from Canva listens, I'm sorry. But, we use that tool. So we don't pay for that tool. We run the rest of our business through a program called Ivory, which is a white label version of Go High Level. It's owned by 2 Australian women, which we loved. So we run our website, our courses, our standard emails through there, but not our high frequency marketing emails, because wasn't the cheapest way for us to do that. So that costs us, I think it's $150 a month for that platform. And then we use Flowdesk for our emails. We bought it before they changed their pricing. So I think we get it every year for about $350. So $1,000 because we pay up front for Go High Level, we get $1,000 for the year. So $1,000, $1,300 plus another $600 a month. You're looking at $6,000, $7,000, maybe $8,000 a year on our tech stack, which, considering we have 30 full-time employees running through that system, it's such a no-brainer. And the way that I kind of look at it is, if our tech stack helps get us 10 hub clients, that has completely paid for itself.
Absolutely. And like that whole stack is just so small. Like to have just like basically those 3 main things for AI, like in the paid realm of life. And
Yes.
then just your usual things like your website and your Canva. Like there was nothing in there that I'm like, oh, she's got all of these different things that are doing 800 different things. And, that's
No.
really, really so lean. So thank you for sharing.
Exactly. Oh, sorry. And the one other thing that we do have is, I do still pay. So we have a self-hosted instance of N8N, just because there are some things with the connections. So say, for example, I have Claude Cowork Claude Cowork is what I use to manage my inbox. So it does like an inbox sweep 3 times a day. One of the things it's allowed to do is, if it detects emails that actually should be handled by my human team, it sends it to my human team and says like, hey, this is Nici's email assistant. I think this one's for you, right? Now, the Claude plus Gmail MCP connection does not allow it to send emails. So then we have an automation built by N8N that Claude triggers and sends the emails when it decides that that's needed to happen. So that is an extra. But the N8N self-hosted, I don't know, it's crazy cheap. Like it wouldn't even add $50 a month to that sort of price. Yeah.
I just can't believe how lean your company is. Like you must be
That is
like,
gold. Oh yeah. And I think like a lot of people ask me that, because I actually had a woman contact me the other day, and she was like, I posted something else about a big content week that we'd had that drove sales in the systems, but similar to this, but not about this launch in particular. And she actually contacted and she said, oh, well, that kind of means nothing if you spent 90% of it getting those sales. And I was like, yeah, that's such an important point. And so I wrote back to her, because I said, look, I actually feel quite uncomfortable sharing numbers. The reason I do it is because when I saw women in particular sharing about what their business made, it was my unlock to be like, oh my God, really? And, now I make a lot more than that. But I remember the first time I saw someone saying that they made 20 grand a month. And I was like, that's insane. Like, imagine our lives if I made 20 grand a month. Imagine what I could do for the family. Imagine what I could do for my children. Like, just all these different things. Like, I could finally pay for my daughter to go to guitar lessons, and like I could pay for swimming lessons for all 4 kids, and just all these sorts of things, right? And I really valued that, because it made me realize what was possible. Now, of course, when you start to run a business, you realize all that 20 grand is not yours to keep, because you have to pay for things. But it's always been my, I guess, objective to set the standard for what AI in a business looks like, both from a lifestyle point of view. So like having 1 day off a week is really important to me. Not working past usually 4 p.m. when my kids get home on the bus is really important to me. Being able to have holidays off, all that kind of stuff. I try not to take meetings during school holidays. All of these things were just as important to me, but I also wanted to set the standard of what a profit margin could look like. And at the moment, I mean, we run it at more than an 85% profit margin, which just means our ability to be like, what else could we invest in? Who else could I support? What else does our team need? What training do they need? Like, I'm about to run, I don't know, when does this episode air?
June.
Do you know what day at all?
June 22nd.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Okay. So it's going to run after, not because I was going to give it away because I haven't told them yet. But in 2 weeks' time, but this episode will air after that, so it's not gonna be a spoiler, but I'm shouting my human team like 2 days in a five-star luxury resort and massages and private Pilates classes and, like, dinner out and breakfast out just to say thank you for the launch, but I only get to do that because we actually have the means to do it, and now I'm considering, starting up a VC funding extra company so that I can invest in other women-owned AI startups. It just means that the impact that we can make is so much greater. It's not just about the profit, it's also about what that profit means, right? And I think that's an awesome, I guess, like, use case, but also hopefully I'm inspiring other people to be like, if that is actually possible, think about the impact that I could make with the ideas I have. And that's where I see the promise of AI.
Absolutely. And so well said. It's all about the impact. Like you're paving the way for women who have families, have businesses, and want to be able to do it in a way that means they can actually give to both of those things and still make a really great impact on the world, live the life they want to live. Like it's literally inspirational what you're doing and the way you're building in such a really easy to understand. You articulate so clearly what people actually need to do. So it's like you're kind of paving this way for women who want to build a life by design for their business, their
Yeah.
family, their impact, their future, the future of the communities around them, because when you do have all of that extra resources, time, all of that sort of stuff, there's so much you can do for the communities that you're a part of.
Yeah, and thank you so much for saying that. And I do think that's a really important part. And the data backs it up. Like the data shows that when women have money, they quite often invest significant portions back into their family and their communities and the spaces around them. And I also guess I have a caveat to this that if you're allowed to want money for money's sake, like I think sometimes women carry this unfair burden that we have to always be thinking about what else we're doing for everyone else. You're allowed to want that comfort and ease for yourself. And I think that that does, by ripple effect, make the world a better place because if we have lots of people that live in financial security, I mean, that's a really lovely thing at scale. It means that we're not left wanting. We can, create those opportunities. We can create that sense of safety. But yeah, beyond that, it is about the impact and it is about what you're able to do and the standard that you set. And for me, that's a really big part of it. It's showing my children what a new version of normal could look like for them and that level of safety that I'm hoping to create for them as well, that they can chase their passion because they're safe to do so. They don't have to be in survival mode. I grew up in a very stable environment, but yeah, I was a single mum of two and I very much lived in survival mode between Centrelink payments. And so that's a big kind of driving force for why I do this and why I want to give this to as many, particularly women, but also just awesome people worldwide. I want to give it to as many people as possible because I think imagine all of the cool outcomes that I can't even dream of that are possible if the masses have access to this kind of infrastructure. It
Yeah.
can really, yeah, really create stuff that is going to blow our collective minds.
Yep. That's exactly what I tell people when they talk to me about AI is I'm like, AI is just going to give you the freedom to do the things you actually want to do. It's going to take away those tasks that you don't really enjoy anyway and allow you to do those things that you are passionate about. Like that's where I see it going for the masses is all of those daily tasks no one wants to do. They're going to be gone. So people who want to write music are going to be able to write music. People who want to be
Yeah.
art teachers are going to be able to be art teachers because all of that admin life stuff is going to be taken away. So I just think it's amazing. And I am so appreciative for you being here and sharing all your wisdom with us. Where can people find you?
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure as always. Always love coming on here and speaking to you. So if people want to reach out, the best place is probably to email us, hello@aiherway.com.au, or to get in touch through our website, which is www.aiherway.com.au. But you can also find me on socials. So I'm on Instagram at AI_herway, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, just Dr. Nici Sweaney, any one of those platforms. But, well and truly, I would say we've got a lot of DMs happening. So if you actually want to reach the team, or if you actually want to be connected to us, what product might be most helpful for you, email is probably the best way forward. That way, my AI agents and amazing human team can get back to you as soon as possible.